I just want to make sure I'm being heard because it's a dead silence on my end. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Just doing a mic check. Don't want to
Yep.
lose my sound. Don't
Yes.
want to lose my voice.
No, we can hear you. We'll be starting this broadcast in just a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. 8:30 on the dot. Like, share, and subscribe, and comment.
I just want to make sure you can
Hello
hear me.
to Parent Talk. We can hear you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Parent Talk, a forum where you, as parents, can join us as professionals and other parents to have discussions on family and everything under the sun. Today, we're joined by Aisha Jones, who's a financial literacy coach, and she's going to speak with us about finances. Welcome, Aisha. Hi, how are you doing
Hi,
today?
I'm doing amazing. I just want to make sure I'm coming through clearly because it's a little bit of
You, you are clear on this. Thank you so much. So, couple of could you? I'd one I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself to our audience so that they can know more about you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you so much for having me as a guest. When you talked to me about your ideal, I fell in love with it, especially the platform that you have to educate other people. For those of you who are joining in, my name is Aisha R.H. Jones. I'm a certified success and financial literacy coach. And so I started my journey over 20 years ago. Just to tell you a little bit about my story, the reason I started is I was a teen mom, single mom, and I came to a space where I was eligible to qualify for low income housing. My son and I had been recently homeless. And so we were able to get into a place, but then I was able to qualify for low income housing. When that opportunity came up, I had demolished my credit. And, it wasn't funny at that time. It was very actually painful. So I could not qualify for this place. And it was so painful that I said, you know what? I need to do something about it. And so I went on to learn as much as I could about financial literacy, restoring my credit. Once I did that, I was able to restore my own. By the age of 23, I was able to purchase my first home, and the rest has been a journey of me helping other people. So,
Wow, your story is amazing. I'm sure a lot of young women out there would like to be ahead in their journey as you are. I'd like to ask you a couple questions because as we're coming out of COVID-19 and all the other things that has gone on in the United States so far, how would you advise us to create a budget?
okay, I love that question. Under the platform that I'm in at this current time, one of the things that we offer is budgeting. A lot of people get intimidated when they hear budgeting, right? It can be a little scary. At least, I'll speak for myself. It was scary for me. It's like a budget, but a budget really is advising your money where to go. A lot of times we tend to, as our parents would say, live above our means. And so we want to make sure we're staying within what is coming into our households. So starting a budget, it definitely starts with understanding what you currently have, what you're currently bringing in, and then what's going out. I was speaking with a young lady and she was almost in tears. She actually said, I did this. And when I looked at everything, I found out that I don't even have enough. We do have an app that makes it a lot simpler for you. But really, a budget is not a scary thing. It's just telling your money where to go. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. It really is important to get ahead of your finances by telling your money where to go.
Definitely, definitely. In line with that, a lot of people fail to save for a rainy day. What is the best way? I know some people say you put aside 5% of your income. Some people even say 10%. What is the best option for saving for a rainy day?
Okay, so another great question. Love your questions so far. Okay, so one thing I will say to you, I learned a long time ago not to save for a rainy day. I know it sounds a little weird, but I'm gonna tell you why. Because of what I learned is if I save for a rainy day will always come. But it very much so is important to pay yourself first by putting 10% out. As we learn, 10% goes to tithes, 10% goes to paying yourself. You said 5%. I say start where you can, but you definitely want to pay yourself. You definitely want to pay your tithes. And so, the tithe is wherever you see fit. I don't want to get into that aspect of it, but it really is
Right.
important. It really has helped me out tremendously. So, a wonderful question.
Great. Managing credit. I remember when I started college, the first thing I was presented with was a credit card, which for a lot of people has messed their credit up. What would you advise a young person who has gained a lot of credit because of mismanagement? How would you advise them to manage their credit so that they can reduce it?
Okay, so again, love the question. So first things first is you're right. They a lot of times, our youth are being preyed upon with, having them apply for credit. Most of us did not learn. You would probably agree with this. We did not learn how to manage our credit or anything about credit growing up. We learned about algebra. Most of us we use it, but not in the way that we were taught, right? So, coming into getting tempted, because it is temptation. And just to kind of tell you a little bit of story, I fell under that temptation because, being 17, my son and I were homeless. We got our first place. As soon as I turned 18, I demolished my credit. Why? Because I didn't know anything about it. I just saw that they were giving me these cards and I went out and I maxed them out. So you definitely don't want to do that. So general rule, the way 30% of your credit is going towards, where the type of credit that you have. Okay, so it is important to have credit cards, but you want to keep credit cards at a utilization of 30% or less. I always recommend 15%. So, a lot of people, they see those limits, $1,000, right? Let's just take it at 1,000 because it's simple math. So if you do have a card that is $1,000, you do not want to go over $300 in spending. Okay, so my advice is to keep it at $150. You should not have more
Right.
than 2 to 3 cards, and that should help our youth. Just don't go max all those cards out, and don't keep applying because it will drop your score.
Definitely, definitely. I know a lot of parents don't, at least some parents don't start their children on a budget early or even teach them. I mean, no, now we don't have to worry about checkbooks because nobody's using checks anymore. But teaching them
Right.
how to transact transact with credit cards, because everybody's handing their kids a credit card and they're seeing the cards being swiped, but they're not learning that there's a balance to it. So for me, I think it is important for the parents to give their children the statement so that they see how it's done, and the fact that you have to pay even with opening a bank account for them, and that's attached to that card, so that they manage, if you're giving them an allowance, that they manage the allowance so that they know how they can spend their money. In in my days, it would probably have been a checkbook, but now it's a credit card. So how early would you suggest that a parent start teaching their child these principles?
So it starts with the parent, and that's what we teach. We want the parent to really get that education because, again, this is a generational thing where a lot of us as parents were not taught it. So it's really impossible, or I won't say impossible, but it's really challenging to teach our children something we never learned, right? So it definitely starts with us. First, we have to get
Yes.
a handle on it before we can, even put a credit card in our children's hand. Um, One of the tools that I think is really great, is starting them as young. We have a program that starts them off at 8, and it really helps them to learn how to budget and get paid. But one of the things I've done for my kids, which all parents should do, is get that one credit card that you keep in rotation. You keep the utilization under 30%, and you add your child as an authorized user. Every company is a little bit different, but then it's not in their hands, but it's building your budgeting in control. Include them in on the conversations. I've done this with my daughter, and it's amazing how she is coming to me with different questions and the things she's doing. She's 16. She invests in stock. There are a lot of different things that she's doing. She's making her budget for her home, preparing, because they see us. And very rarely will our kids do what we say, but they do what we do, right? We can tell them all we want, but
Exactly.
we have to lead by example.
Definitely. We have a couple of comments from viewers. Mr. Brian Jones said he certainly did learn about credit once he got a credit card at 18 and he wrecked his credit. And I sure a lot of people can definitely agree with him, because at the time when credit cards came out, nobody taught us to manage our credit cards. And hi Jer, hi, how you doing? Jerry Sparks says hello everyone. So another question I have is parenting during hard times. we're going through a hard time right now. What are priorities in spending?
So it's always a tough question to ask ourselves the difference between what we need and what we want, right? There are certain things that we want that we don't need. So it really starts with that. What are the necessities? What do we have to do? Sometimes we do have to scale back, with certain things to, like you said, going through the challenging time that we face in 2020, and it's not over yet. So really just being able to write things down, what's going out, the same as the budget, and saying what's a
Mhm.
priority and what's not. Even, I know some people that will buy
Right.
food and everything has to be name brand, but maybe, I'm big on ingredients, but there's some things that you can
Hmm.
find that has the equivalent ingredients that you like. They just don't have the brand name. So just really
Yes.
taking the time out to be cautious, and like I said, writing things down is going to go a long way, because a lot of times we don't write them down, and that's why they don't happen. So that is
Yes.
what, yeah, just really being clear.
Definitely. Like everything else with our memory and with also with finances, we need to definitely write things down and make sure that we know, like you said, where everything is going. So there's a challenge that most people have: renting versus homeownership. So as far as finances is concerned, what is the best option? Is it renting or homeownership?
Depends on the person. Most of us are taught. I'm a first generation homeowner. Purchased my first home, like I said, when I was
Hmm.
23, and so I've been blessed to be able to own a home. Which, going back to when I was paying rent, I realized that really what I was doing was paying someone else's mortgage. Um, if I could do it all over again, I would really suggest, and I'm seeing a lot of people do this today, buying like a duplex, a triplex, so then you can
Hmm.
own the space that you live in, but then you have tenants that will cover the other costs. Now, for
Right.
some people, they may not enjoy that because they're living next to their tenants, but it is, and so it's like the work is never done because the tenants are always there, but it's creating those healthy boundaries as well.
Right.
But that would have been one of the things that I would have really paid attention to. And like I said, a lot of people are doing it, but the
Hmm.
objective is to, have that property. Now, interesting enough, I love Warren Buffett, and one of the things he talks about is owning a home is actually a liability, not an asset. And it's just because all the expenses that goes out. So, coming into a space, I feel like there's nothing better than home ownership. You just want to make
Hmm.
sure that you're looking at numbers, and you don't go too crazy, and you could have gotten a, rental that would have, saved you some money. But objectively, I would just say get a space that you can rent out something, so then you still have some income coming in,
Yes,
if that's possible. But nothing like home
definitely.
ownership.
And
Definitely recommend it.
I agree with you because either way, whether you have it as with a portion that's rented, or even have it where it's just you and your family, there is ownership and equity, because as the money go in, it also comes back out at the end if you decide to sell your home. So it is a very, very good option. And one of the things that I like is that as you work, I think if you start putting away and just have a fund separate just for your future home, I think that's a good plan for most people. It doesn't matter how much you put away, it's something better than nothing towards your future home. Depreciating values, because we have a lot of purchases that we make, and some of them appreciate, like as in a home, but then there's others that depreciate. How do you differentiate the difference between the ones that are appreciation, add value to your budget or add value to future gain, on those that does not? I know a car is one of the things that they said it's a depreciating value as well, and the reverse is true. the home that's an appreciating value.
Okay. So it kind of had a lapse there. I'm not sure if you could hear me. But
Yes.
okay, perfect, perfect. I have to keep checking because it kind of cut out on you. So just to make sure I understood the question correctly, you're asking the difference between
Mhm.
how to tell the difference between something that's going to appreciate versus depreciate. You know,
Yes.
that question is a little loaded. Uh, always, the thing is always if you can earn an income off of it, you can invest and get money back from it. That is a good thing. Like a car, of course, is a liability, And so, one of my favorite quotes I ever heard is actually from a rapper. But E40, he said, don't go out and buy, I think it was an $85,000 car before you buy a house, right? So I mean, a
Right.
car is going to depreciate as soon as you drive it off the lot. So, in most cases, unless it's
Yes.
a car that's, is what do you call those cars? You know what I'm saying? Like a car that's, everyone is seeking those type of cars, but most cars are going to
Yes.
depreciate. So, I just say, I really don't like to use the words be modest, but I do like to use the words to really look at your budget because you don't want to go too far and then you're
Yes.
stressed out and you're in a situation that could have been avoided just by taking those baby steps. It's okay to have nice things,
Mhm.
it really is, but you definitely want to pay attention. So if you have something like a home, like you mentioned, sometimes a home will depreciate, sometimes it will appreciate. So it just
Mhm.
depends on the time
Yes.
that you go in. And I would love to give you an example if we have time for that.
Yes, we do. And I also want to invite our audience to ask some questions as well so that we can get some information from Aisha. She's very good at what she does and she can answer questions for you. I'm not sure if I'm covering everything. That's why nobody's asking questions, but I invite you all to ask questions so that you can get some information from her.
Please and thank you so much. So I,
Go
I
ahead.
definitely want to give you this example. So my first home that I purchased, I'm actually from California, Los Angeles, California. And this first home that I purchased when I was 23, 2 bed, 1 bath, not in the greatest area. I paid 120. We were actually approved for 150,000. So when we moved
Okay.
into the home, the ideal was it was an investor property. Um, but the idea was to come in and upgrade it, which we did. We put in see in the area that we lived in, but we did it anyway, central air and heat. So we did a lot. We even added on a bedroom, a bathroom, updated the kitchen. So we put a lot back into it. So fast forward, I want to say 7 years later, we were ready to sell that home. We had it appraised. It appraised for $500,000. Okay. But it is going to
Wow.
depend. Yes. It was a 3-2 at this point. We added on 500 square feet, but and so that became, and so when you look at what we put in versus what we spent, we still had about $300,000 in equity sitting there from all the upgrades that we made to the home. So you walk into something, and that's why it's even going back to the home ownership. It's great if you
Mhm.
can get a property that's just not brand new or built, and you can go in and add into it. But you have to look at the location because I was a licensed
Yes.
realtor. I'm not anymore, but in the state of California, we know the 3 rules of real estate is location, location, location. But that is an example. But
Yes.
really, something that's going to give you a return on your investment is what you're really looking at. So you just really have to be careful.
I like the fact that you brought up the advantage of purchasing a home, but then adding value to what you purchase because a lot of times people see a rundown home and they figure, okay, well, I need it move-in ready. But there's some advantage, like I said, based on the location in buying a home that you can move in live in, and then doing the upgrades, because you can get loans for the upgrades, and then it also adds I can say location and the value of the home when you add the upgrades to it. So we have Jared. She Okay, she's asking the question, who owns the land on the property, the homeowner or the bank? This question is from Jared Sparks.
Okay, so great question. I think it really depends on where you're at. I know in California, we own the land and we own the property. In the state of Texas, which I currently reside, we own the land, we own the property. But what we did find out was there was a portion of our land that we didn't own. It's kind of complicated. I would actually have to go back and get that card because that's not my expertise. But we did find
That's
out, like
okay.
when we moved in, that that was the case. But yeah, in most cases, you'll even see it. Like the home that we're in, we had it built, and so we paid a certain amount for the land, and then we built on top of the land.
Right.
But you said the bank,
I
yeah.
think that she was asking the homeowner or the bank. Yeah, I believe our guest is having a little bit of a Wi-Fi problem. One of the things I I remember
Okay,
is
it
a
looks like
eminent
I'm
domain.
back.
Maybe what she was talking about. Yeah, you're back now. Is it eminent domain? I think in some states, a portion of your property is considered eminent domain to the town or the county for which you're living in. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, and so I don't think that we actually found out we had minerals, we had gas. So we had some people come in and want to purchase
Oh,
it. Yeah. So, it's been a while, so I don't really remember all the details. But when she said, "Do you own it or the bank?" I'm wondering if she's saying if you are getting a loan through a bank, then they actually do have a lien on it. So they do have the right to foreclose on the property if you're not paying for it. So I'm not sure if that's what she meant. If she wanted to,
do you want to clarify your question, please, Jer? If it is once you have a loan or if it is outright? So while we're waiting on her question, one of the and I think we touched a little bit on it a little earlier on, identifying 911s in your finance. As you go through your daily life, there are emergencies that comes up that you just how could you identify when there's a 911 within your finances?
Okay, so I do want to ask you, when you say that, do you mean as far as saving, or if because there are a lot of 911s. Your car could break down. That's an emergency, because you have to need transportation. With the pandemic, it kept a lot of us at home, but you need transportation to get to and from.
Yes.
So of course that is, and that's
Hmm.
what they talk about, is really putting that savings in place, allowing that money to work for you eventually is the goal. So when those type of
Right.
things, because life is always going to show up for all of us, we,
Yes.
we actually recently just had a situation with our AC. We have 2 units, and that's not, so you always have to be prepared, especially being a homeowner. But even if you're not, you're still going to have things that
Yes.
come up that are going to take priority, and you have to, put those things in perspective first. So I'm not sure if I answered the question that you were wanting,
Mhm.
but if you do have something else to throw in,
So in instance of, let's say, your how much should you keep in your bank? An average of your percentage you can keep in your bank. Now I know it's different when you're a homeowner because you have to keep a higher percentage of savings in your bank account, and but what percentage with somebody who don't have a home, then it's a little bit less. But how would you advise somebody on average in what is important for them to save in their bank or to keep in their bank account, or when a particular amount has reached a threshold that you start trying to figure something out, because then you know you're going to be in financial jeopardy, more or less.
Okay. And it still cut out, but I heard you well enough to answer
Hmm.
that question. So I do apologize. I did cut out a little bit at the end. So, going back to it, 10% is something that I recommend. I always say, I'll tell you what, let me just have a transparent moment. I was in so much pain from demolishing my credit, like the gentleman who said nobody taught him, he didn't know. Same thing. I was in so much pain that I said, once I get myself out of this, I will not return, and I've had some ups and downs. We all
Right.
do. I was one that was impacted or affected when we had that market crash in 2007, 2008. Um, so I was one that gets stuck
Yes,
there.
somewhere around
But
there.
one of the things is what I've done is practice healthy habits with my credit. Now I don't advise you always go run to a credit card, but that's what it's for, emergencies. It's not for you to go out and
Hmm.
purchase things. As someone would say, if you can't purchase it twice, you can't afford it. I don't like using words like that because
Right.
I really do know that abundance really is our birthright. A lot of us just have to come up to par to understand that. But basically, I definitely would say, save those credit cards for emergencies. If someone, and I know I'm going off topic a little bit here, but if someone is looking to build their credit, they want to charge maybe I guess every single month. The rest they can save. I start off with
Hmm.
$1,000. Getting to that $1,000 as quickly as possible in savings, but then also taking it up a
Hmm.
notch, putting that 10% and leaving that money there. So again, being able to discern between what is a need and what is a want is really going to be important. um,
Yes.
so again, just really being able to discern the difference. But as far as anything else goes, we're all going to have situations where we're caught off guard, but if we do have a healthy savings and we're learning to pay ourselves
Yes.
first, we won't get caught off so guard. If our credit is intact, we do have access to OPM, other people's money, and ultimately that's what you want to be able to have access to. And
Yes.
use it in a
Yes.
in a healthy way. Don't just go out maxing cards out. Really use it when you need to.
And I think that's the problem. A lot of people, when they get a credit card, they max it out and then they pay the minimum. And what happens when you pay the minimum is that you end up losing because you're paying a lot of interest on the remaining balance. And I think a lot of people end up in a little bit of financial ruin because you're paying too little. And I heard somebody say that, that you should spend the money off, and that is how it's better to do that than to try to max the credit card out and then try to pay them up little bit by little bit. So I want you guys to just ask some more questions so that we can get some more information from our financial literacy coach, Miss Aisha. So I'll talk to you in the meantime. I invite you to come back on next Friday. We're going to be having Miss Michelle Bailey, who will be discussing hold on a minute. Sorry about that. She'll be discussing the facts of life, an important parent-child conversation. So join us next Friday for the facts of life. So Miss Aisha is back. So and we're going to continue the question from Jer. She's saying that some banks own the land that the house is built on. So she was wondering what purchasing a home is the land purchase when buying the home, or is it separate, a separate purchase altogether?
Okay, so that is a question I'll be completely honest, I've never run into. So that real estate is not my expertise. I was licensed as a realtor. Financial literacy is more up to par. So, if it's something like credit cards, debt payoff, things like that is more in the rim of what I do. But that's a really great question. And maybe I can visit that question for you. I can look it up and come back and certainly comment to give you that information, since that is a question
Yes.
that is of interest to you. So I definitely will do that. I do have, lots of friends that are realtors and, or people that I work with because, my job is once someone gets their score where they need it to be, then I usually will send them out
Mm-hmm.
to a realtor, to a loan officer, to help them go that next step to purchasing a home. But really, my expertise is in the realm of helping people who are wanting to take that first step. They don't know where to begin, and I've been there, so I do understand that. Even like you're talking about these things, some of the things that we do offer for our clients is give them tools to help them pay off their debt. Because if you've ever built up a mountain of debt, I have, sometimes you can't see your way out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so important to have the tools because a lot of times it looks a lot, more frightening than what it actually is. But when you're able to get,
Mm-hmm.
some tools into your hands to really help you see, it's not so bad at all. And as you said, which was great, is that you definitely want to make sure that you're not just paying the minimum on things. You want to pay a little
Right.
bit more, but the program that we have, it actually helps you know how much, because sometimes people are paying a little bit more and they're still stuck. They're like, why isn't this going away? And it's because they're not paying the right amount. It could
Yes.
be a difference of $10 that's really good, paying that a little bit less and it's just not moving. So yes,
Yes,
it's pretty neat.
definitely. So we have another question from Brant Jones. He says, if you max out your credit card but pay it right away, does that help your credit at all?
It does not. And I'll tell you why. And that's a great question. So let's just say you get your card in, you're very enthusiastic, right? When you get that card in, and you go out and you max it out. And then as soon as you max it out, let's say the next day you pay it off or before the statement comes, it doesn't even have time to cycle through the bureaus, for you to get credit for even using that. Now, the great thing is that you paid it off, so it's not going to impact you by saying that you max out your card 100%, because then it's going to drop your score, but it's not going to help you either. So the goal or the rule is once you get that statement in, is when you want to make that payment. Keep that utilization at 30% or below, because to be truthfully honest, what banks are looking at is, can you manage money? If you're maxing out cards, that you can't be trusted in their eyes. So that's what they want to see. Can you manage the money? And so you want to pay it when that statement comes or on the due date. So then it has time to cycle through the bureaus. When you get the statement, it's being reported. And so that's really what you want to do if you really want to get help with that. Now, what I advise my clients to do is do that for 6 months. A lot of times they start off with a secure credit card. Do that for about 6 months. You will see, usually within 4 to 6 months, a big difference. Credit is a game. Most of us were not taught the rules. And so understanding the rules really puts us in a space where we're empowered, and then we can teach this to our children.
I think you answered a lot of my next question, the importance of repaying your credit.
Okay.
How important it is to repair your credit? I know you spoke about that in reference to your home ownership, but how it does it affect you in other areas of your life? Because I remember recently someone said that your employers look at your credit. I'm not sure how true that is or not, but is it be, is it important to keep repair your credit for that reason or for other reasons, or just period, it is important to repair your credit?
So let's start off with what is credit? It's really your credibility, It's your credibility. It's just saying that this person is credible, they'll pay you back. I mean, many of us have lent out money to friends and family, and we may have not gotten it back. And did we lend the money again? Probably
Right.
not. you know,
No.
So OPM. One of the things, I talked about Warren Buffett earlier, but he talked about how he has all this real estate. He's not using his money. Why would he tie his money up when he can go get a loan with a low interest rate because his credit is up to par? He can rent it out, and the person who is renting is paying for the house and the interest, and his money's not being touched. So that is a way wealthy people build, is by utilizing OPM. Now, when you have less than perfect credit, unfortunately, you get preyed on. A lot of times we are getting approved for things, but the interest rate is skyrocket. So again, I want to share just another
Yes.
story with you. I had a young lady who recently wanted to go back to school, and she just started with our program. She couldn't get approved because her student loans were not, where she needed them to be. So we were working on that with her. She did go out and she got approved, but the predatory lender wanted to charge her 160%. So just to give you some
That's a
numbers
lot.
on that, just to give you some numbers, they were charging her, they were going to lend her $2,000, but they were going to charge her, exactly that plus, and they wanted their money back in a year. So when we saw those numbers, it was very frightening.
Yeah,
So
that is really bad.
yeah, it really, really is. But as far as
I
employment
mean,
is
I
concerned,
look at the mhm.
oh no, you go ahead.
I look at a lot of the stores, their credit cards are like 20 something percent interest rates. And I'm like, that is way too high. So for someone to now charge 100 something percent interest rate, that's really out of the black box.
Absolutely,
I think that's
absolutely.
connected again. Oh, there you go.
I'm
Yes,
still here.
that is way
Yes,
too much money. 20 something percent is way too much. And Andrea Jaho is asking, what are your thoughts on Susu and Partners?
I heard a lot of that come up, and I did want to say something too before I address this question. I had one person, I never thought Walmart ran
Yes.
credit until I worked with a client who said they were not allowed to get a job because Walmart ran their credit, because jobs will look at you as a liability. So that's a big thing to understand. If you
Yes.
come in, they're in trouble, they're more likely to steal.
Yes.
And again, I have to be honest. One more thing I will say, and I will answer Andre's question, is even with your insurance, your car insurance, did you know that
Mm, yes. She'll be back in a moment. Her Wi-Fi is giving a little problem. But just answer the Andre's question on Partner and Susu. There, there are people who like them. There are people who don't like them, and um, it's not a legal form of banking, so you just be careful. That's my opinion on it. But we're going to ask Aisha if she can comment on that.
I just know a lot of people who have gotten burned doing those, and I feel like it's a cop out, an easy way out. Now, I know in other communities, I've heard other communities do this where they come in, they live together, and then everyone puts their money up to help someone begin their business.
Hmm.
And then they rotate it through the
Yes.
family. But when the way that we've seen, like a
Yes.
lot of us saw when the pandemic hit, I know a lot of people who got burned. Red flags went up for me. Like you said, it's not
Yes.
legal, a legal form of banking,
Yes.
and someone ends up getting burned eventually. Maybe someone walks away with money, but there are people that get hurt, from
Yes.
that. So nothing I would
Yes.
recommend. Nothing I would recommend.
Yes, exactly. I wouldn't recommend it either. I mean, there are a lot of people, like I said, within the family or close-knit communities who have used it and helped each other. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with people who you don't know, you run the chance of really getting burned.
Yeah.
So
You
definitely,
know,
it's not something that I would recommend.
I want to chime in if you don't mind. There
Yeah, go
is
ahead.
also we get asked this question a lot about trade lines. For those of you who are listening, if you understand trade lines, I have people come in and they say, I want to get some trade lines to boost my credit. So for those of you who don't know what that is, I used an example earlier with my daughter. I have a credit card. It has low utilization. It actually has, I want to say we're at 19 years of having that card open. I added her as an authorized user. She will never touch that card at this point because she doesn't need to. But since she has been added on as an authorized user, she is actually getting credit for this. Okay. Well, we've had people
So
do it. Well, they'll sell trade lines. Oh, did you have a question?
I'm trying to. Is it just to raise the person's credit that you use a trade line?
Right, because what it's doing is it looks like it's her credit that she's had open, and it's impacting her score because she's added on as a authorized user. So sometimes when I talk to clients, I'll recommend that. Like for my husband and I, my credit was better than his, so I added him as an authorized user to build his credit. But if you do it with someone that you don't know, it's illegal. So I've had a lot of people come and say they were burned. They paid 3,000, 4,000 to be added onto a trade line that had this. It's illegal. And
Right.
so you gotta call things what they are. Some of the things that we do though is
She'll be back in a little while. Her Wi-Fi is a little slow, so it'll take her. She'll get back to us. Yeah, I'd like you guys to meet us here every Friday at 8:30 p.m. sharp. We'll be having numerous discussion. On the Friday after Michelle comes in, we'll be having Olive and Denise Marshall, who will be speaking on marriage. So definitely join us every Friday. We're going to have different discussions. So we'll see you here. Aisha is back, so she's going to finish about the trade lines.
okay, awesome. And I do apologize. I'm actually as close as I can be to the internet. I have the highest capacity
It's
of
okay.
usage. I said, this is information you guys need to hear, and the enemy is trying to stop you from getting it. So we'll just chop it up to that because. So what was the last thing you heard?
You were talking about your husband and not adding other people other than your family because it's illegal.
Okay, so yeah, so adding him on actually did help boost the score, but I've seen people get burned. I've had, a young lady I was working with, and she had someone take her money to add her on and run off with it. So just know if it's not your family, that's who it is intended for. It's illegal. If you know the person, their family, that's great. But what I was saying, some of the things that we do to help our clients is we can help them add rental history if they rent and go back as far as 2 years. And that's something that does help. Or, a lot of times we start them off in the baby steps as a secure credit card. I had a young lady go from starting with that. I think she had a $200 limit. Of course, with secure, you're going to put your own money on as a deposit. And, I always say, make sure you pay that on time. Don't go over 30%. you'll see a big difference in your credit within 6 months, 4 to 6 months usually. But what it's also going to do is prepare you to get, that unsecured card. So I had a young lady go from that secure at 200 up to $3,000 card.
Awesome. That's good. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the business that you said you had started?
Yeah, so I'll tell you two rims of it. When I started off, I was independent and I just focused on credit repair. And it was great. But what I was finding out is a lot of times there were times when an attorney needed to intervene with the process. Like, say, for example, something was really an attorney had to go after to really help the client. And which meant that client had to go outside of me to hire an attorney. Attorneys are expensive, right? Um,
Yes.
Also, sometimes most of our information, unfortunately, is floating around in cyberspace. So I didn't offer my clients at that time when I started a way to protect their identity. These are things that
Okay.
are all provided with the company. And that's why we say it's financial literacy. So it's not
Okay.
credit repair, it's financial literacy because the goal is what I always tell people we
Okay. We're going to wait for her to come back in again. Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to just share with you, as I said, the lineup for the next 2 weeks. So we're going to have Miss Michelle Bailey,
Yes.
who's a health professional, on the facts of life and the importance of sharing that information with your children, as well as a conversation on marriage with Denise and Oliver Marshall from Denali. So just to share what we have coming up with you. Is she back yet, Henry?
Yes, I can see you and I can hear you. Again, I do want to apologize to you and
Okay.
your viewers. I'm not sure why my internet never does this, but I guess tonight it is. I guess it's Friday. It's ready to
Important information. That's
important information, absolutely. So I do apologize to you. But yeah, I wasn't sure what was
you
the
had
last.
reached the portion where you were talking about. Sorry about that. You reached the portion where you were talking about having to bring in lawyers, but everybody was out of your area, and you changed around your business type.
Yeah, so my business type only focused on credit. And so now it's financial literacy. So it's giving people more tools, which is, the way it's packaged is to empower the community. Because like I said, if we only focus on credit repair, it's like putting a bandage on a gunshot wound. Most of us don't even know how we get in this situation anyway. So the goal is to educate people so they know how they got there so they don't end up there again. So that's what I fell in love. And we do have a program for our youth to educate them as well, because it starts with us. And then we definitely want to pass it on to our younger generation so they are empowered with this information. Like I said before, credit is a game. Understanding the rules is the key.
Definitely, definitely. If you want to share information with our audience, please feel free to do so.
Okay,
How can
absolutely.
they get in touch
So
with you?
what we do is free phone consultations for anyone who's wanting the information. So you can actually go to Facebook. The way my name is spelled is actually my Facebook page. Send me a friend request, inbox me. You can also text credit to 469-909-0637. And if you put the code January, or you just type, credit January, JAN, you don't have to type it all out. that will allow me to know that you came from this platform, which will allow me to talk to you about some things that may help you out a little bit further. So if you don't mind, just type credit and then space Jan, or you can put it all together so I know that you came from this platform.
Awesome, awesome. I'd like to thank Aisha so much for joining us on tonight. We definitely did have a plethora of information from her, and I ask that you definitely take advantage of the service that she offered. And as always, I ask you to join us here next week on Parent to Parent Talk. We are going to be here every Friday at 8:30 p.m. And we're going to have a lot of information that will help both you and your family as you go through life's journey. If you have questions that we haven't covered, please feel free to put it in the comments and we will answer it at a different day. If you have a topic that you want us to share, please let us know. I know one of the two topics that we're going to be coming up with in addition to the two that we mentioned is on education versus entertainment, and a couple other parenting versus others, because a lot of times we find that as single parents, we tend to introduce people into our homes, and sometimes it causes problems. So these are a lot of the information that we want to have discussions about. And on the 29th of January, we're going to just have discussions. You can come on and you can just have discussions be here, and we look forward to seeing you. Andre, I'm going to ask if you can please put on that music for us, please, before the intro. Before the extra. Remember to like us on Facebook at Parent to Parent Talk. Our website is parenttoparenttalk.org, and you can email us at parenttoparenttalk@gmail.com. And the 2 is a number 2, so it's parent, the number 2, parenttalk at gmail.com, parenttoparenttalk.org.